Welcome friends, welcome back to the kitchen, welcome back to Sunday morning in the old cookbook show. Today we're going to do a recipe out of a cookbook that just arrived in the mail. I absolutely love it when people send me cookbooks, and someone sent me a bunch of little cookbooks like this. They're corporate cookbooks. They're considered often ephemera. They're things that a lot of people won't collect because they're not real cookbooks. To me, I find them fascinating. I find them fascinating for a few different reasons. This is something that really, this one is from 1926. It's called Sweet Secrets, published by the Ulrich and Berry Company in Chicago. In 1926, they were selling this for 10 cents. And it was to use, all the recipes use products from their line of consumer products. All of them are syrups or jams, either some sort of corn syrup, refiner's syrup, maple syrup, and then a bunch of jams and jellies. And I find these books fascinating because at their core, when they first start showing up in the 1800s, they're all about showing people how to cook with new products. And the two most famous ones would be baking powder and baking soda. Up until baking powder and baking soda came onto the market in the mid to late 1850s, people baked completely differently, and these cookbooks were needed to show people a very new method or way to leaven their cakes and pastries. And the rise of branded consumer products and the way that those branded consumer products are packaged in the early 1900s sort of drives and fuels this, so that there's hundreds and thousands of these cookbooks showing you how to use a particular product. I think that eventually these books lead to the homogenization of a lot of American cooking. They lead to the loss of local food types or local variations in a lot of different recipes. Where you used to see in these cookbooks and in community cookbooks and church cookbooks 10 or 15 different varieties or ways to make a recipe that's called one thing, by the time you get to World War II, there's a great homogenization of recipes and the way that we cooked things. And you can see it really well in these books, these corporate books. As you know, there were maybe 10 regional brands for the same thing across the United States. One corporation starts buying them up and amalgamating them until they may trade under 10 different names across the United States. They may retain their market share under different brand names, but the corporate structure means that there's one company at the top that owns them all. You start to see the books where a lot of the regional dishes fall away in favor of one master recipe that starts to win out. And we're going to talk about this coming up. I'm working on another another video, a longer project that looks at how these other smaller recipes fall away and becomes one thing, to the point now where people actually deny that any of the previous recipes even existed. Oh, by the way, we're making molasses cornbread. So in this jug, I have melted butter and molasses. The recipe does call for lard, and I usually have lard on hand, but I went and looked in the fridge today and I didn't have any. So substitute butter, it'll be fine. For lard, you could also probably substitute shortening if you wanted to. We now need 3/4 of a cup of sour milk. This is buttermilk. This is the 2023 equivalent of sour milk, as it's called for in the recipe. Buttermilk that you buy at the grocery store today is, in effect, soured milk, soured 1% milk. To this, I'm going to crack in an egg. One egg. And baking soda. And then mix that together. Beat that egg in. And then this all goes into this mixture. There we go. Now, kind of beat that together a little bit. It's probably not really going to come together until we get the flours in there. So first in it calls for flour. So beat in about half of that. And then the other half of the flour. The recipe mentions that I'm supposed to put in salt. The written part says salt, but there's no listing of how much salt. So in goes a pinch of salt and then cornmeal. So half the cornmeal, mix that in. Now the recipe says to bake in a shallow tin in a hot oven. So I've got the oven at 375, and I'm hoping that this shallow tin is kind of what works. They don't give a size. This is 9 by 13. I think it should be fine based on what I see here in the measuring jug. So one last mix and into the tin. Of course, no baking time is given, so we'll just have to play it by ear. I'll probably start looking at it at about 15 minutes. Once I get this all smeared into the corners here, we'll get it into the oven and see what happens. Ooh. That's hot. Careful.
Hey, Glen.
That's hot.
Hey, friends. Whoa, watch out. Oh, we've got choices. That's too hot.
So while the cannelon of beef cools down a little bit, let's
Cannelon of beef?
cannelon of beef. Let's try the molasses cornbread.
Oh, I guess I don't need a fork for that. So there you
No.
go. I got forks ready, though, for our next tasting.
So here we go.
Do you like cake?
Well,
Just hang it over here.
it's not really cake. It's cornbread,
Okay.
but it's molasses cornbread, so it's a little bit sweeter. Mm-hmm. It's cornbread. Good depth of flavor. Smear of butter.
Yeah, it's definitely got the texture of cornbread.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's moist, it's light, but you have to have butter on cornbread, or at least I have to have butter on cornbread.
even with the molasses,
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
it is really good. That is a good cornbread.
I think a little jam would go well with it.
Yes. Yeah. It would go with a lot of things. It has a deeper tone than most cornbreads. This is really good. Okay. Molasses cornbread. That's a winner. Mm-hmm. Hopefully the person who sent this book to us recognized it and knows who they are. Thank you very much for sending it in. That's a great book. This is a great cornbread. Thanks for stopping by. See you again soon.